Get ready for news and views from Lubbock, Texas, USA. What's going on and real talk with people who move and do things. This is the Focus LBK Show with your host, Robert Jenkins.
Oh, snap. I'm about to get into it today, folks. Welcome to episode 114 of season 3 of the Focus LBK Show. This is Robert Jenkins, your host. And yes, indeed, today I want to talk about SNAP. I think the government has, as I understand, has reopened, and I guess all the payments are flowing again. Hopefully people are getting the things that they need to survive. But I want to talk about SNAP based on my experience and based on something of a more conservative / libertarian perspective. See, they talk about SNAP benefits on the news, depending on which channels you watch and which people you watch. They talk about it. They call them benefits, one thing. But to me, benefits means something that you have earned, and it's impossible to earn, as far as I'm concerned, it's impossible to earn other people's money. You can earn your own money. You can earn your own benefits through a job or some other contractual situation, but it is impossible to earn other people's money. So I'm not sure if SNAP should be called a benefit. I think it should be called part of a social safety net or a social program, but it's not a benefit in the sense of that you have contributed anything to it or earned anything. You haven't signed any contracts that said if you do this, they will do that. So the first question is whether or not it's a benefit. But the second question about SNAP, and most importantly, is whether or not SNAP and other so-called unearned benefits, are they compassion, or are they examples of what I like to call weaponized compassion? Y'all remember that movie? What was that movie with Ving Rhames where he was I think it was The Green Mile. I don't know if y'all saw that movie or not. I saw it many years ago. I barely remember everything about it. There was a serial killer killed some little girls, and Ving Rhames, I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't seen it, but Ving Rhames being it's kind of it's a play on expectations, because Ving Rhames is this huge. Is it Ving Rhames? It ain't Ving Rhames. It's the other dude, Michael Clark Duncan. Anyway, he's a big hulking black man. He's scary and strong. They're playing on the stereotype of the scary black man, right? But it turns out he's gentle as a lamb, and he actually has some abilities that help him have insight into things. I'm just going to leave it at that in case you haven't seen it. But there's a scene in that movie where these two little girls were killed by this serial killer or whoever it was, or whatever the situation was. I don't remember. But they were killed, and he touched them, and he was laying there. And he got the understanding and the insight of what happened. And he was crying. And he said, man, the saddest part, I'm just paraphrasing, going from memory. He said, the saddest part is they used their love for one another to keep them quiet while he killed them. Or something to that effect. That, my friends, is what I like to call weaponized compassion. When you take somebody's natural instinct to be compassionate and weaponize it against them, to make them do something that is actually not compassionate. You actually use their compassion against them in a way that harms them. That's what I contend SNAP benefits are. And I'm going to tell you where I get my attitudes from. Actually comes from working all my life to try to support myself and my family. Before I tell you the story, though, I just want to talk about the first reason I think SNAP benefits are not compassion at all. They're actually weaponized compassion, twisting compassion into something evil that actually ends up harming the people. The first reason I think that is because, and I've seen this with my own two eyes, here in Lubbock, here in our fair flat city, here in the LBK, I've seen this. SNAP benefits, food stamps, you might basically want to call them, destroys work ethic and self-sufficiency. Now, any country you live in, any city you live in, any state you live in, any community you live in is only as strong as its weakest members. And there are some members who become weakened over time. Elderly people, widows, the kind of people that the Bible urges us to have compassion for. Orphans, that's fine. You're supposed to have compassion for people who legitimately cannot help themselves. I'm not talking about people who legitimately cannot help themselves. What I'm talking about here are people who are using SNAP so-called benefits fraudulently. It's literally what they are doing. So I got an article, and I'll link to it below before we get too deep into this. But this article is on Armstrong Economics. Armstrong Economics is a pretty enlightening site that I like to check every so often. And he talks about in this article how 1 in 10 Americans receive food stamp benefits through SNAP. Now, here's the problem. They asked all 50 states, the federal government asked all 50 states to submit their statistics and demographic information about who is on SNAP. And somehow this became a partisan issue because only 29 states answered that response, and those were mostly Republican states. The other states that didn't answer were Democrat states, Democrat-run states. So they failed to provide the federal government with the statistics that they asked for. Now, according to this article on Armstrong Economics, over 186,000 deceased Americans are currently receiving SNAP benefits monthly. See, 186,000. This is the problem. 1 out of 10 people are getting SNAP benefits to the tune of $9 billion with a B dollars per month. $9 billion per month. 186,000 dead people are getting monthly SNAP benefits. Yeah, get this. By the way, 500,000 people are getting 2 checks, 2 monthly SNAP allotments. That's fraud. And they know it's not accidental. If you're getting twice as much as you're supposed to be getting, you know. And like I say, my attitudes towards this were formed as a young man working and struggling in stride and trying to get myself on my feet here in Lubbock. So, for example, when I was, this was back in 96 or so, I used to work at United's on the east side. Now, when I say United on the east side, I don't mean the store that's on Parkway. To me, that's the new United's. The United I used to work at was on Idalou Road, Idalou Highway right there on the east side. It wasn't on Parkway. It was on Idalou Road over there across the street from the hamburger stand, down the street from Roy's Burgers. Now, when I used to work over there, I was a sacker. I was in college, and at one point, when I had dropped out of college, I worked out. Yeah, well, I think I had dropped out of college, but I took a semester off. Basically, I didn't say I took a gap semester or whatever. And while I'm working there, I vividly remember all of this. It wasn't super busy most of the month, except for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of the month, and the 15th, 16th, and 17th of the month. So basically, I realized everybody that got food stamps came on the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, and the 15th, 16th, and 17th. Here's what I watched happen for those 6 days out of the month in normally a pretty moderately busy store. In fact, it was so moderately busy that I was the only sacker from, I think it was 8 to 3 every day. So they only had one sacker 8 to 3 every day. That was me. I was sacking groceries for the whole store. And if you hustled, which I used to, if anybody used to know me when I worked back then, everybody see and came to see me at work, you saw me hustling. Holla at your boy down in the comments if you saw me hustling over there back in 96 or whatever it was. So on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, though, you could not keep up with the demand because everybody and their mom got their SNAP benefits, their food stamp card, food stamp benefits. Now, I grew up at a time before that when food stamps was literal stamps, S&H green stamps that you had to put in a book and lick them and stick them in a book and then go to the store and tear out a page and pay for that food with that. I guess they thought that was demeaning or time consuming. They eventually put it on the Lone Star card, I guess it was called. Here's what I saw on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 15th, 16th, and 17th of every single month. There would be starting pretty early in the morning, about 8 or 9 o'clock until close. There would be trains of young, healthy, able-bodied women, usually about 2 or 3 at a time. And they would come up to the store, to the United's over there on Idlew Road, and they would bring all their kids. So you would see 2 or 3 women with anywhere from 4 to 7, 8 kids in between them. No men at all. They were unmarried. And they would come to the store, and they would caravan around the store with about between 2 and 4 grocery carts. And they would fill up their grocery carts with food. I'm talking overflowing. So you picture in your mind a caravan of grocery carts pushed by kids going through the store or their mamas. The women were almost invariably overweight. I'm not cracking on them because I'm overweight myself, but I'm working on it. But you would see young, healthy, able-bodied women who were overweight with no husbands. Don't get mad at me. I'm just telling you what I saw. Walking through the store with up to 8 kids in a caravan, filling their carts up with food. And I mean filled to the rim with what is that? Filled to the rim with brim. Y'all remember that old coffee commercial? Y'all probably don't. Y'all ain't old as me. Now keep in mind, I'm the only sacker. Keep in mind, I was hustling so much that I actually lost weight and got back down to my high school football weight when I was at that job. You know what I'm saying? I was looking good, but I was sweating all day because I was just running back and forth with carts all day, 8 hours a day, running back and forth with carts, or 6 hours a day, whatever it was. So I vividly remember one particular day. I think there was only 2 women. Yep. There was 2 overweight young ladies, probably my age, keeping in mind, about 21, 22, 3, 4, 5, with 4 or 5 kids going from memory. They were caravanning through the store with 3 big old carts, full overflowing carts, right? I sacked their groceries. I used to pride myself on being a quick sacker. I'm throwing it in there, boy. I'm moving and grooving. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at their stuff as I'm packing it, and I'm reflecting on something for the first time ever. The blatant unfairness of the fact that I, as a working young man, going to school, trying to make my way through college, could not afford anything in that cart, in any of those 3 carts. In fact, they had steaks and hamburger meat, big old family packs of every meat you can imagine, all kind of junk food. It was piled up, and they were getting this free, but they were healthy and able-bodied. Meanwhile, I, your friendly neighborhood sacker at United, looked at I remember this. They would never let you get, I think it was 36 hours or more a week, or more than 36 hours a week for any more than 1 or 2 weeks, because that would put you at being full time and they had to pay you benefits. So I wasn't even getting benefits. I used to make 4 something an hour or 5 something an hour, I think. And I remember this, my check at the time, take home, was like $123 a week. And I remember looking at these people's cart one day, or their 3 carts rather, busting my hump to sack them. And I remember looking at them saying, dang, man, they got hundreds of dollars worth of food. I'm busting my butt, and I can't even buy one of these carts. I can't even buy more than a couple things, a couple of bags worth of this out of any of these carts. I say, wow. So while I'm thinking this, and I'm still moving fast and sweating, got the whole store packed up, because it's the first, second, or third, or 15, 16, the whole store backed up. I can only do 1 register at a time, but I'm moving and grooving. I'm getting it done. I take them out to their car, and this is when I almost said something to these ladies. So after I done valiantly and heroically, okay, maybe not heroically, but after I done diligently and rapidly sacked all their groceries, and I got a cart, I'm pushing a cart in the front and I'm pulling a cart in the back. They full carts. The kids had the other cart. They had 3 carts and 4 kids. I remember now. We're going out in the parking lot and we go to their car, And guess what kind of car these ladies got? They had a Pinto. If you young and you don't know what a Pinto is, think about the smallest, least expensive car you can think of with a little hatchback. 2 doors with a hatchback. It might have been 4 doors. No, it was 2 doors and a hatchback. So you got 6 people and 3 carts of groceries. 2 overweight ladies, 4 kids in the back seat, taking up the whole back seat. That's before we even start putting groceries in. Now they have a hatchback, so I fill the hatchback up with one of the carts or 1.5 of the carts. I still got like a whole cart or something to put in there, and there's no more room left. I done filled up the car, boom, filled to the gills with groceries. And I saved the bread, of course, like a good sacker for last, because you don't want to smash it, right? And I'm putting all this stuff in there. It's to the point where I'm handing groceries to the kids. I done filled up the whole car. Now I'm giving each kid 2 or 3 bags. They sitting in the back, 4 kids abreast with 3 or 4 bags each in their lap. And I look and I got the bread and I'm just like, man, there is no more room in this car. And I'm like, I don't know where to put this bread. So I'm trying to squeeze it in somewhere. And get this. This is what made me almost say something that I shouldn't say. Well, I didn't say it, but I felt like it. The lady that was driving said, and I'm talking about the young lady that was a little older than me. When she saw me trying to fit the bread in, she looked back, don't smash my bread. That's what she said to me. No, don't smash my bread. And I looked at her with utter disbelief and disgust. Lady, you don't know you got 4 kids and 3 carts of groceries in a Pinto with your homegirl and both of y'all fat? I was thinking this. I didn't say it. What you mean, don't smash your bread? I'm running around in the hot sun, literally in summer in West Texas, pulling 3 carts, trying to fill your cart up, your little Pinto up with these groceries. And that's all you got to say to me? You didn't say thank you. That's what you say to me? I just looked at her, gave one of the kids the bread, and just turned around. Today, what the kids say, SMH, I was just shaking my head like, really? You see how unfair that is? Do anybody out there feel like I feel like, dang, you getting SNAP benefits, the working guy who's working and in school can't get none of the stuff you getting, can't afford none of the stuff you getting for free, and you have no courtesy or concern or decency whatsoever. All you can say is don't smash my bread. Okay. And you wonder why I say it destroys work ethic. I know whole generations. I know people in families where 3 or 4 generations ain't worked. 3 or 4 generations been on welfare. Because why would you work if you can get 3 full grocery carts twice a month? While somebody else that's working but also poor can't afford 1 cart. That ain't right. So, and you talking about benefits. Who is that benefiting? And why? That's not a benefit. I'm sorry. And it goes back to my thesis for today is that I think it's weaponized compassion because it creates that kind of anger and that kind of disgust that I felt that day. You can't help but feel that way as a human being. When I see 2 ladies that could be working, but they ain't. Nothing wrong with them. So SNAP benefits as a form of weaponized compassion, first of all, destroys your work ethic and your self-sufficiency. And if you got 1 out of 10 people in every community that don't work for themselves and don't work to eat, especially if they can, which I guarantee you a big percentage of these people can, but don't, that destroys the fabric of your community. Not to mention, it creates inflation, but we'll get to that later. I'm going to tell y'all another story as I go into my second point. My second point, and it kind of goes back to what I just said, it destroys the faith of working people, including working people who are themselves low income, like I was at the time. Here's another story of how working people who are low income or who might be low income are really damaged psychologically and spiritually by SNAP benefits. People that get SNAP benefits that don't need them or deserve them. SNAP, so-called benefits. I knew a guy who didn't work. Since the day I met him, didn't work. Married a woman who couldn't work. She had some issues, not necessarily physical. So we had two non-working individuals married. This is when this was sometime after that United Supermarket situation. I was a young man at the point, had dropped out of college and joined the Air Force. Now, while I'm in the Air Force, I got married. So I had a wife and a child at the time. And we were a very young family. We were about 28, I think, or 26 and 27, something like that. And we're just married and just starting out. And anybody... most people can probably attest that can be a rough time. You're trying to form a household on income, on young people's income. You know what I'm saying? You're struggling a little bit. And you still, at this point in my life, I was still not eating high on the hog. We weren't poor. We were working and decent income, kind of low to middling income. I don't know. Because like I say, I was like an E3 or something in the Air Force. Definitely at the low end of the totem pole, y'all know what I'm saying? And I remember this gentleman that I'm thinking about who never worked since I knew him. To this day, this is 30 years later, still doesn't work. This is over 30 years later. This was in 90. I gotta do some public math, man. I gotta pull up my calculator. This is 2025. That was back in, we'll say, so it was 25 years ago. We'll just call it 2000. This was 25 years ago. This gentleman still don't work, nor his wife. So this guy and his wife get SNAP benefits and Section 8. And I remember going over to their apartment one day. And they lived in a nice apartment down in H-Town. I was like, yo, this is and I immediately thought, man, nobody in this house works. And they got a better apartment than me and my wife who both work. What the world? Y'all know I want to say something different. What in the world? So I'm sitting there talking to this guy, looking at this nice apartment. Yeah, I'm a little hot under the collar. Like, dog, I got to get up and go to PT at 5 o'clock in the morning and then work 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day for the Air Force, doing some actually pretty important, fulfilling work. And I don't make enough money to get a nice apartment like this. And my wife worked. And we only got one child at the time. And we can't afford to live like this. How are you affording this and you don't work at all, nor does your wife? And you got 2 kids. That don't sit good. Do it. Be honest. That wouldn't sit good with you. So I'm looking at this and I'm not really barring the guy. I'm not holding it against him. I'm just shaking my head in disbelief. Like, man, I'm the fool for working. No, actually, I'm not. Even the Bible says something to the effect of if you want to eat, you got to work. Adam had to earn his bread by the sweat of his brow. So while I'm sitting there talking to this gentleman, I still know him, still cool. I ain't got no problem with him. I'm just saying, listen to this situation. I just happened to, I think he said there's a beer in the refrigerator. All right, cool. So I went over there and got a beer. I look in the refrigerator. He got steak, portobello mushrooms, shrimp. And I'm thinking like, dude, so you got a better apartment than me and I work and neither you or your wife work. You got better food in the refrigerator than me and my wife who both work and neither one of y'all work. And they got he was telling me they had got some kind of little settlement one time. I don't know what it was for. It was a few $1,000s. And I remember thinking, man, I know what I would do with a few $1,000 settlement if I had 2 kids and lived in an apartment. Because you go in their kid's room in a big old nice apartment that we can't afford, and they kids got a mattress in the room laying on the floor. They laying on a mattress. And he took the settlement and went to some fancy store and bought an Italian leather sofa that was on sale. So they spent the whole settlement almost on an Italian leather sofa. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's weird. If I got I think it was a $4,000 settlement or something, I would have got myself a car so I could get back and forth to work. But he didn't do that because he ain't got no job to get back and forth to. So you see how that kind of stuff, when you see it and live it and witness it with your own two eyes, you say, man, that destroys the faith of working people in the system and in other citizens who might be receiving these benefits. You live better than me and I work every day and my wife work every day, but you live better than me and neither one of y'all work or ever have worked. That is a shame. There's nothing compassionate about that. It can't help but cause jealousy and upsetness and disquietude. You know what I'm saying? And this brings me to another point. This article I mentioned on Armstrong Economics talks about how SNAP benefits amount to $9 billion a month, every month in and month out, year in and year out, decade in and decade out, $9 billion. And yet everybody that I've ever directly seen with my own two eyes on SNAP don't work, are healthy, could work, and live better than me at least at that time. And you go, wow. When you see that, and then you realize that when you pay for these programs, the government, because by the way, don't get it twisted. Your tax money and my tax money, if you work and pay taxes, almost certainly does not go to these programs. Tax money does not, it's not equivalent to $9 billion a month for 12 months. That's the biggest program we have, according to this article on Armstrong Economics. Back in the 80s, Ronald Reagan commissioned a study called the Grace Commission. And he basically said, hey, get all the great economics professors and stuff together, and let's see where does tax money go? When we tax you, income tax and stuff like that, where does it go? And you know what they found? This is a quote, I think, out of the report. Not one red dime of income tax money goes to support the economy by building roads or paying for taxpayer-funded services. Not one red dime of your income tax money, your tax money, goes to support the things that you think it supports at all. And you say, well, then what are you complaining about then? I'm complaining about the fact that this means if tax money is not used for these programs, or at least is not used in the way that we think it is, where does that money come from? It means that money comes from the Federal Reserve printing money. And this is the tragic part of all of this. When the Federal Reserve prints money that should not exist because there is no equal amount of economic activity, meaning you're just printing money, but there's no more people working and making things. People working things is still right here, but the money is getting printed like this. Oh, LBK, that is the main producer of inflation. That's why after COVID, inflation exploded, because you had people staying at home, not able to work. So there was no economic activity, but you were sending stimulus checks out to everybody and repeated stimulus checks and repeated small business loans. Where's that money coming from? It ain't coming from taxes. It's coming from the Federal Reserve, which means you're producing inflation. You're not helping anyone. You're giving somebody a temporary benefit, a temporary little $2,000 check times 350 million people in the country. What that means is in a few months, that's going to be direct inflation. A few months to a couple years down the road, you saw prices skyrocket on everything. And you know what? That happened because you shut the economy down. And instead of having economic activity generate money, you just printed money in the Federal Reserve. So that's where these benefits probably come from. And if that's all they're doing is printing money to pay people, it's like being in the strip club. I'm told I ain't been in a strip club in a long time. And I never did this in a strip club. When a couple times I went, I did more like this. Because I didn't have the money. I felt shamed and stupid. But anyway, I wasn't making it rain. When you make it rain in your economy and that money comes from the Federal Reserve printing money, you destroy your economy. You create inflation. All these prices right now to make it impossible for you to live and for me to live, it's very difficult. That is a result of printing money. That is the result of $9 billion a month going to people who 186,000 of them are dead, according to this article. This is the money that's going to 500 million people, or 500,000 people are getting 2 SNAP payments, double SNAP benefits, and know they're getting it. That's fraud. And these Democrat-run states, as I alluded to, won't even provide those figures. So all these figures that I just cited, these only come from the 29 majority, most of them Republican states that submitted the data. There's still almost 20 other states, 15, 20, I'm doing public math here, 19 other states, I guess, 21 other states that have not provided any statistics on who gets SNAP. Well, the good thing, no, before I get into the good thing about that, I want to continue down this vein of how that is weaponized compassion. You're giving money, $9 billion a week to people, a good percentage of whom shouldn't even be receiving the benefits because they can work. And you're saying, oh, we have to be compassionate. But meanwhile, you're destroying these people's self-sufficiency. You're destroying their self-esteem. You're destroying faith with other Americans who actually work for a living. And here's the other thing. And this one is diabolical, I think. Y'all know that a lot of these groups out here, the socialists and communists, if you ever read the Socialist Manifesto, the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx, they say they want to destroy capitalism. And some people out there listening to this probably say, I want to destroy it too. Well, okay. We live in a capitalist society. Every other socialist society, every other communist society has failed miserably. There's reasons for that. But when you read the Communist Manifesto, they say they explicitly wish to destroy capitalism, the very form of society, of economy that we have in this country. Well, there was a group of, there was 2 sociologists back in the day named Cloward and Piven. I can't think of their first names. They were a man and wife team, Cloward and Piven. And they had a strategy called the Cloward and Piven strategy. And it was based on weaponized compassion. They too were communists, as I understand it, socialists. And they wanted to hasten the demise of the United States by destroying our capitalistic economy. And they said in order to do this, you could have pretended compassion, basically, weaponized compassion, to where you extend social programs to everybody. Maximize welfare payments. Give it to anybody and everybody. Maximize SNAP benefits. Maximize Medicaid and every program you can think of. Push it to the max. Why? Because they knew that destroys a capitalist economy. So in other words, they were weaponizing your compassion. Oh, I want to help the people that need help. Everybody wants to help the people that need help. That's why you have churches, and that's why you have charities and stuff like that. You don't use the government to do it because the government doesn't produce anything. They're just going to print the money, which actually hastens their own destruction. So Cloward and Piven, this team of sociologists, husband and wife team, I think they were, if I remember correctly, their strategy was to maximize benefits to everybody, including people who didn't even need them or didn't even want them, so that they could overburden the system on purpose and cause it to collapse under the weight of social programs, and which, of course, just lead to inflation. And I'll be dang if that does not look like what is happening today. I'm all for if you got widows and elderly people and individuals whose health legitimately prevents them from working. I have no problem whatsoever extending SNAP benefits to those people, or any other kind of benefits that might make their lives a little bit easier. Because I know that I'm a blessed person, and I know that my family is blessed, and I don't mind extending those blessings to other people if we can. However, when you're fraudulently collecting SNAP, when you're able-bodied and can work and haven't worked in 30 years, but live better than most people I know who work, that is untenable, is unsustainable, and it is not compassionate. It is a good way to destroy the very system that we all live in and depend on. And it's a way of doing it by using their compassion against them. Like that dude said in Green Mile, he using their love for one another to hurt them. That's what SNAP benefits to me equal, especially in their current form. And as this article says in Armstrong Economics, I think that the first thing they need to do now that the government has restarted, if the SNAP benefits did indeed stop, that's a good thing. Stop them and make everybody reapply and strictly scrutinize that list of people who are applying for SNAP benefits and make sure that they are not able-bodied, that they are not receiving more benefits than they deserve, and that they are not double dipping. Make sure all these people, how much money is going to dead people and people who are knowingly receiving double dips in a time when regular people who work can't even hardly put food on the table? You see that? That's what I'm talking about. That's the result of SNAP benefits. Weaponizing your compassion destroys your compassion. It destroys your economy. It destroys your goodwill, and it destroys your self-sufficiency and your desire to even support yourself. How is that good? How is any of that good? How is any of that compassionate? How is any of that Christian? How is any of that good in any way, form, or fashion for any society anywhere on the planet? I don't even hardly care about other societies. I care about this society that I live in, that I have contributed to the building and maintenance of, where my family resides. That's what I care about. And I have the sneaking suspicion that the people who are allowing these abuses and things like that to continue, I have a sneaking suspicion they are diabolically intent on destroying the system. You know why I got the sneaking suspicion? Because they be claiming to be democratic socialists and stuff like that. Mom Donnie and all these cats up in Oregon, everywhere you look, Minnesota, I think it is. Everywhere you look, they democratic socialists, which is to say communists, which is to say that they know good and well that the Communist Manifesto's ultimate goal is to destroy capitalism. In other words, to destroy the very society that we live in. So when they out there talking this game in your face about being compassionate and helping others, and don't you, no. The main way you can help others is to encourage them to learn how to fish so they can feed their own self. I like how I said that, feed their own self. So they can feed themselves. It's always a better feeling to feed yourself and stand up on your own 2 feet. I honestly, I have never yet in my life seen an actual person on SNAP benefits that's disabled. Or legit that apparently legitimately gets on. I know people here in Lubbock and also in Houston who get SNAP benefits and sell them. Y'all know what I'm talking about. 2 for 1, cash. You get $100 in benefits for $50 in cash. That way you can buy your liquor and your weed and all that stuff. Because SNAP don't pay for none of that stuff that you really want. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Everybody, raise your hand if you know somebody who does that. Raise your hand out there if you know somebody who fraudulently receives SNAP benefits. Is my thing crooked? I always be looking at this like, did I bump that? Raise your hand. You know some. I know some. We all know some. And it's not compassionate to let that kind of stuff continue. In fact, it is a suicide pact if we let it continue indefinitely. All right, LBK, this is your boy, Robert Jenkins. I'm going to step down off my soapbox now and bid y'all peace and hopefully leave something on your mind. And if you are one of those people, perhaps I could persuade you in some way to do better, because it's ultimately better for you, for yourself as a person and an individual, and also better for your society when everybody tries to provide for themselves to the fullest extent possible. It damages the spirit of the individual and the country. It damages the economy, the pocketbook of the individual and the country when you don't provide for yourself. If you can't, everybody understands that and nobody's mad at you. But if you can, but you just not, I have less and less compassion for that kind of thing. For real.